E.L, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for your time and congrats for a pretty entertaining film.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
my first question is going to be the silly, obvious question, right? So, when you hear about like a horror film where the characters aren't speaking, are you thinking about, okay, people are going to be comparing it to a silent place?
You know, I I think we considered it, but I was just so happy that I got to make this crazy script that I was just like I think my feeling was that the end result of this thing would be so gonzo and different that they could compare it to it, but it is its own weird animal. So I think there's always gonna, in A Quiet Place, it's like, they could compare that to Bird Box, or they compare that, I think, I think it's totally fine, and we always share some DNA with some of these other horror movies with monsters. It's unavoidable.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so let's get to Simon's script, right? And so it's got this like biblical theme, okay? But we're not really sure, what these monsters really are. Can you clarify what they are?
I'm curious, what do you think they are?
Well, I thought that they might have been like humans that were like burned during the rapture and like need to be fed, or they could just be like, some effed up creatures that are put down to like haunt the remaining survivors. What's the right answer?
I think you're right. You're right. To not get too much into, mythological detail, but yeah, like they experienced something. It was pretty hot. The temperature was up here, and it kind of changed them. And now they're sticking around, and they got, they're hungry. But I think that, yeah, you nailed it. It's like, I think they are what they seem to be.
Okay, and so the worshippers, right? We kind of know what the end goal is without revealing the spoilers, right? But
Mhm.
are they afraid of the creatures? Are they worried about getting killed themselves, or do they believe they have a biblical, motive or reason to just keep feeding them? That's their purpose left on Earth.
Well, they have a form of a relationship with them, as you can see in the opening ceremony. There's definitely, they have a relationship of a kind. They're definitely scared of them. As reasons you'll see when you watch when you watch the film. They're sort of part of the religion in some ways, for sure. It's all part of, like, everything that's happening feeds into the narrative that the leader of this cult sort of like expresses to their followers. Um, Completely. I don't want to get too much into detail about it, but I think it's something that you understand viscerally when you watch.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk about, Samara. I'm a big fan of hers, and this performance is an extremely physical performance. And even though I've always liked her work and she was really good in all these other movies, she kicks a lot more ass than we've seen her kick in the past, right? So how
Oh,
did you
wow.
know that she could physically go there for this role?
Well, that's a wonderful compliment. Thank you, because she has kicked a lot of ass. Um, you know, I saw it in her other work that she had the potential to do it. I think it's like, you know, this is the rare, like, kind of action horror thing where there really isn't a break for her to talk or anybody to catch up with what's going on or any exposition. So I think by the nature of the design of this thing, it was always going to be more of a grueling wall to wall. But she wanted that. I think it's like Samara, like, she's very interested in pushing herself. And I think that the challenge of this is what really drew her to it. I think that, like, I love action movies. I do feel like horror films, they often do sometimes feel like they're apologizing for their own existence, where it's like, because we have these set pieces, we need this other stuff that's kind of cursory, and it doesn't even really feel like anybody's that passionate about the stuff in between the set pieces, where it was like, in this, it was like, yeah, what if it was all just set piece? But we approach that with the same care as we would, like a film that was really just about the drama or whatever. And I think that she had that same spirit. She is very genre minded. I think she really thinks about what the audience is experiencing and wanting to deliver. And I think there's not too many other people that have that mentality, which is why I think she'll end up being a badass action hero in more movies, because, like, she's born for it.
Well, she's got the weaving DNA, right? Agent Smith popping out of the out of the
True.
woods too. All right, so
Yeah.
I want to compliment you on one aspect of the film that really blew my mind, right? The lighting and cinematography, right? Because a lot of the action takes place, at night, ostensibly where it's pitch black, but you have the entire forest just beautifully lit where you can kind of see the primary, action, but there's still like a lot of like, haze in the background where it's kind of like developing that mood. And so I'm looking on interweb here, and I guess your cinematographer is Mark Haniel. Talk about achieving that look because it looks fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think like, in watching horror movies, the conversation of how you light the woods is like a really tricky one, because like philosophically, some people might say, if you don't see much, that's scarier. But like I kind of feel like sometimes that's just a low budget excuse because you don't have the lights or you're not putting in the time to light the woods. But it's like to me, I like seeing the woods. I think the woods is such a character in this, and seeing like the branches, seeing like some depth to me was a lot more interesting than trying to pretend that it was like, like a documentary and like letting it all fall to like crushed black. Like I really, I think that there's like something really nice about actually seeing everything and still trying to have a mood. It's like Mario Bava was really great at that. It's like there's just like you see his settings and his environments, and there's still a vibe, there's still a mood. Mart did this ASC award-winning film called November. It's a black and white movie, which like, he brought such an interesting like folk magical realism to that, which I felt like he would be able to do here. And I think like one of the things that we talked about sometimes was like EC comics or old like Ralph Bakshi animated cartoons where it's like things are like mucky and a little murky, but you still see everything. And it's like there's something like there's something really impressionistic, but also like getting to see all those trees, it just, I don't know, it's evocative to me and I really enjoy it. But yeah, thank you so much. That was definitely a lot. There was a lot of conversations back and forth of how much of the woods to show and how bright to make it. And we just felt like if the movie was too dark at like minute 30, your brain is probably just going to start to shut down. I don't know. It's going to be visually boring. So I like to see things.
Well, you guys do a hell of a job because it really helps with the scares. All right, so they're giving me a
Oh,
heads up here. So I got to ask you a question from the metric suits here. So I guess you're directing a Peacock horror series called Teacup from Juan and McCullough. What's that all about? Can you explain the vision for that?
yeah, um that's coming out soon. Pretty shortly after Azrael. That one's based on a really cool book that I grew up loving called Stinger by Robert McCammon. And then Ian McCulloch found a way to really ground it and put it in more of this like family drama, sci-fi mystery milieu. And that was really cool because it was like, in Azrael, it's like balls to the wall. Everything is absolutely batshit crazy. Every scene's like gory. Where it was kind of cool to then try something that was like, okay, like you care about these domestic issues, like you have actual monologues, you get to enjoy conversations, and occasionally something really spooky or crazy happens. But like, it was a lot more of like a mystery in some ways, and it's much more of like a sci-fi drama. So that was a fun, it was fun to like totally change all gears. I like to keep myself engaged, and I think getting to do different things is like one way to do that. But I've worked with James Wan's TV production company for like years now. That was like kind of, it's been a creative relationship for a long time. So it was really fun to get this one greenlit and get to make it. And pretty shortly after I finished, post on Azrael.
Awesome. Thanks for answering. All right, let me sneak
Of course.
one more in before Brett takes me away. So I thought your ending for Azrael was pretty effing awesome, right?
Oh,
It kind
awesome.
of
Thank you.
delivered something that had been building up to. So without revealing spoilers, can we see an Azrael 2? Do you see sequels in line for this? A whole franchise developing?
You know, I I aged probably 10 years on the movie. So, you only have so many years in your life that you could trade in. It depends. If Simon had an idea, maybe we would mess around with it. We talked about a really weird kind of almost parallel story that could be taking place in the Esperanto hippie camp. That would be a fun faux horror kind of thing. it's hard to know what happens right after like the ending of Azrael, because it feels like a lot of things are about to change. But it's already pretty bad there in that world. But yeah, I don't know. I'm open.
Bravo. Thanks for your time, man. Enjoyed your film.
Thank you. Great to meet you.